Hey guys, Buckeye Bar Guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, and that way, anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show. Welcome back, everybody, to Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Today's date is Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, and got a good show for you today. Going to go over a couple things, just a couple things that were brought up in the press conference that Ryan Day had yesterday, mainly focused towards the running backs coaching situation and some interesting things that he said for that, and then how the special teams coaching room's going to be laid out. Who thought that was interesting too. So we'll talk about that stuff. And then we got a little fun thing that we'll do in the second part of the episode. And we'll get into that once we get to there. All right. So first things first. So Ryan Day was asked a lot of questions, obviously, about Tony Alford. Didn't get into a lot of the how he was feeling and stuff like that with Alford going to Michigan. He kind of he didn't want to throw any bulletin board material out there. You kind of get that, how that goes. But he was, he brought up that he's actually took the coaching range yesterday for the running backs, which I thought was funny. He made even a joke that he didn't think that the guys. He went over a play for 20 minutes with the guys, and thought that they probably weren't used to that. And so I thought that was funny. And then he talked about kind of like where he wants the coaching search to go. He says he has an A list of a few coaches. Similar to what he did with the offensive coordinator's position, which was O'Brien and Kelly, and then there was a third name. He didn't bite on who the third name was. He was asked, but we do know that there's a couple names that we assume that's on the list. There's obviously been some things back and forth with DeMarco Murray from today. That Gillespie from Alabama has been on a lot of people thinks on the list. A couple other guys possibly is on there. So we know he has an A list, and he did say that he kind of wants to, give more information to the media by the end of the week. So, obviously I think he wants to get through it, hire somebody. So, we'll see how that goes. But we'll start with him talking about him actually being in the room. We kind of talked about on the last episode that, short term wise, it wouldn't be a big deal. Chip Kelly could always run the running back room and he run the quarterback room. I kind of never thought that they would reverse that one. So,
right.
Yeah. So just your thoughts on that.
No, I'm definitely surprised because, like you said, I mean, I would imagine if Ryan had his pick, he would go work with the quarterbacks. I mean, that's kind of his bread and butter. So that I don't know, it kind of shocked me, but maybe it's for his own personal growth that he wants to go to another room. I mean, I think it's important though because, as I said, I didn't think him and Alfred were vibing the last couple of years. So I think it's important that he gets in there and he gives the running backs his plan, his vision, just go over it. And do you think the quote about recruiting is not the end all be all, like that you got to coach guys up to their strengths?
Yeah.
I mean, was that a little shade thrown at Tony? Because I mean, something I've been complaining about for years that they just run the same way, all of them.
Yeah. I've kind of felt the same way too. And obviously, as we know, Ryan Day is the buck stops with him, as Harry Truman once said, when he was president of the United States, that, Ryan Day is the man in charge of the program. He's going to get all the love. He's going to get all the crap. It comes with the territory. But, I've heard a lot of people talk about, like, when they've talked about Dallin Hayden over the last couple of years, with like, at a program like Ohio State, the head coach is not there, all right, put Dallin in the game, or, put this wide receiver in the game. That is strictly left to the, to the position coaches. And, and when you look at the guys on the sideline, it's true, a lot of the guys, they're not standing next to Ryan Day. They're standing next to their position coach when they want to go in and stuff like that. So, you know, maybe there is some stuff to some of this stuff, there probably, maybe it was kind of like, there's just something amiss. We've talked about Hayden not playing and other guys not playing in the past. A lot of that stuff probably does fall on Tony and stuff. Now, obviously, again, Ryan Day is going to get the brunt of it, and I don't think that I still get mad at him when he sits up there and in a press conference and people ask him, well, why is this guy not playing, or why are you running this play, and blah blah blah. And, I get it that he has to take the responsibility for it. Well, you also got to lay the wood down on somebody
Right.
then in the background and be like, okay, like we're gonna fix this. Like, so sometimes I didn't think that was happening, but I do think it was kind of like a little shade thrown at him. But who knows? I mean,
But I mean, I feel like I saw more than once last year Ryan Day questioning Tony why, and I think it was mostly Mayan, why he wasn't able to see where he was supposed to go, why he cut up a certain lane instead of having the vision to go where the giant hole was. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. And I think there is something to it because I do think that was kind of a failure of the last couple of years was the running backs just weren't utilized in ways that would make them stand out. Just, again, like last week, this is not bash on Tony Howard, but I thought, you could have got a little bit more out of those guys' strengths and they could have saw the field more in different situations.
Yeah. No, I agree to that. I think probably that I think, and we talked about this a little bit last week, and again, nothing he didn't get into
sniffling and everything. Awesome. Got a cold, so I apologize to anybody that hears me like hacking up anything over here or snot sniffling, so I apologize.
The little ones, they continue to get you.
It's the change of weather. Ohio never knows what it wants to do mixed with the germ factory that is the children. So you're never healthy this time of year. It's just some weeks are better than others, and this is not a particularly good one.
Yeah. I think we were talking about last week that and again, he didn't get into specifics on Alford, but I think probably that there was just definitely they're obviously going in a different direction. I think Chip wants to change a lot of things. He's going to bring in whatever they do. They're going to bring in a running backs, coach that kind of, it might not necessarily be a guy that has coached with Chip, but it's going to be somebody that Chip, that their mindsets kind of blend with each other.
They're simpatico.
Yeah, they have to mesh, and I think some of that stuff that I mean, it was getting to a point like over the last couple of years where you just like, and again, a lot of this is on Ryan Day when like, the stretch run's not working. Like, and I don't know, if they're just not,
you're not actually building off of it enough. It's just not working.
Like if they're not like if they were not being coached up, if Ryan Day shouldn't have been calling the play, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's on both of them and on the offensive line coach. I mean,
the new base run play. Because even if we can build off of this, it's getting shut down for nothing every other time that we're actually running it.
And maybe, maybe that's kind of frustrated him with Tony. But, once they started actually running better, when they started doing more gap scheme runs, I mean, if I'm the head coach, everything's on my plate and stuff like that. But I probably would have been to like my running backs coach, been like, hey man, help me out. If these guys are better at doing this, then speak up, speak your mind. And maybe he was speaking his mind, and maybe he felt like at the end of the day that things were going to change, and maybe he felt like that he was being forced to fall on the sword for everything. And and that's also comes with life with when you're the boss, you're not the one that until you're the one that actually has to fall on the sword. You're not the one that falls on the sword. It's the guys below you that fall on the sword. So and like that's comes with the territory. I don't know, like, so it's just a lot of things I think with it. But again, I think it was it probably is good growth on him that he was in the room. It's the new and approved Ryan Day that, he's kind of turning this stuff over to Chip Kelly, and, he can go venture around. And, right now they need a running back coach, and he could be it.
Does Ryan hear too many voices?
He might.
I don't like. don't get me wrong. A lot of what he's doing is what we've yelled about, what we've called for, but you know, I'm Joe Blow knows nothing, when it comes to coaching football. And I don't want, I don't necessarily want my head coach to do everything that I tell him to. Sometimes I say I act emotionally when it comes to my opinions on the Ohio State team.
Probably in reality,
It seems like everything we've asked for like 5 years or since 21 happened this offseason.
I think probably in reality what happened was, yeah, maybe he listens a little too much to people, but he's been taking a lot of questions about it. And, we don't know this for a fact, but, we'll probably maybe find out down the road. Gene probably had to sit down with him and be like, look, man, word of advice before I leave is that, you got to do this. Like
you got to make some changes.
Like, this is for the best for you, because the guy coming in has no loyalty to you or anything like that, and and you don't want him to hear the fan base next year complaining. Right. So it was probably a man to man with him and Gene, that Gene's like, as my going away present, you need to do this stuff, because we gotta put the program in the best place possible. So I think that's probably how it went. But who knows? Maybe he's listening too much, and that's not a good thing, and that will correct itself down the road. So
yeah. We'll worry about that when we have to. Anything else on running backs you want to talk about, our coach?
No, I think that, again, like I said, there was different things went back and forth about DeMarco Murray today. This morning, you thought maybe he was coming Columbus. Then, like, literally 10 minutes later, you didn't think he was.
He got an extension in the race.
So, obviously, hey, if that's what his agent was doing to get him an extension in Oklahoma, good for you. That's why you have agents. So,
James Laurinaitis apparently interviewed with the Browns, and that he had a job not too long after that. I did find some remarks about the wide receiver room kind of interesting, though. I mean, not that I guess reassuring. I mean, you don't find it interesting or shocking, or you know how good these guys are. So it's nothing like that, because that's just how Heartline's been recruiting. But, Ennis is, the sky's the limit for him. Tate's going to be the next great one. Like, he just keeps putting the work. Jeremiah Smith is, flashing, which we know he's going to have some sort of role in the offense. I mean, of course, we haven't seen a true freshman wide receiver have huge impact for Ohio State. Outside of, moments like Olave against Michigan here and there types. Yeah. Jaden Ballard, though. I mean, and I don't want to throw the kid under the bus, but I don't know, man. That's about all I need to hear when you're going to year 4 and you got to step it up. Like, I don't know if it's ever going to click for Jaden. And I don't want, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I don't know. It's just kind of like, I mean, from being guys that not necessarily like from Maslin, but we live this way. He was always kind of like Devin Smith light, right? Yeah. And it's just showing on the team. And again, don't want to be disrespectful to the kid, but man, I like when you hear that he still has to step up year 4. I just don't think it's ever going to be the time for him here.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it at the end of the season. I mean, we talked about the end of last season too, that he was kind of like on a watch list for us, that, is he going to transfer at the end of spring or whatever? And like, he might absolutely love it at Ohio State. And if he wants to be a part of that, and, I would figure that he wants to show himself off to, NFL scouts. And if that's the case, then, I would not be surprised if he jumps ship at the end of spring here.
Play, right? You got to go somewhere and get on the field.
But there's a gazillion teams around the country that would take him, and he would go right on the field. I mean Jaden Ballard is the 4th or 5th Ohio State receiver, is probably a number 1 on a lot of places. I mean, there's a lot of places in the Big Ten. I mean, the guy could easily probably go to Illinois or Rutgers and be a starter.
Hell, he can go to Syracuse to play with Kyle McCord.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of places he could go, and he could showcase himself. So I definitely think that's probably a watch, coming up here. To, I got to imagine that,
And they didn't say anything about the 22 guys, did they?
No. No,
the
they
two
did.
that is just that's
He
wild.
mentioned Bryson, but he didn't mention any of them. So
Yeah, that's
hey, everybody has even Brian Hartline. He has, those were some highly recruited kids. They just everybody has a hit, misses every now and then, and the guys in the class in front of them and the guys in the class behind them were just better. And like, like
man, I would just love to see those kids kind of, break through and contribute somewhere and get some depth, but I don't know, maybe they just aren't it. But still though, loved what I heard for the most part about the receivers.
yeah. All right, last thing, just on this stuff was special teams. So, he listed how the special teams is going to get. Do we
Enough
need it?
listen to an old coach. Like
Yeah,
he's just checking all the boxes for Buckeye fans
yeah.
this off season.
So we said, he should have it. He should hand it over to a position coach, and he's handing it over to 4 position coaches. So, like, good for him. I mean, what the hell, everybody, like, no offense to people like us, other people in the fan base. I've had people argue with me before about, like, when I've said that, hey, they need to get rid of Parker because they are wasting time, money, and everything right there. They have a special teams coach. That's all he does. And
And he can't help you anywhere else.
and you obviously get, and you always get the about the comment that been like, well, special teams is important. Special teams is important when it's important. Like, it's not like, yeah, would you love a guy to make the big kick when he needs to meet the, yeah, that field goal a couple years ago would have been very important against Georgia. They missed it. They've, like,
But Parker Fleming's not.
it's not,
He adds no value to Noah Ruggles kicking. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's no
That's,
knows how to kick. Noah Ruggles has a coach to help him kick. It's not Parker Fleming.
yeah.
And I'd rather. I'm sorry. I don't know. Even when it comes to special teams, if you're going to break down X's and O's and tell me what you need to do, I think I'd rather listen to James Laurinaitis than Parker Fleming.
Yeah. So I like how he did it. So Grary and James are going to do punt and kickoff teams, and Brian and Eden and Bailey are going to do the kickoff and punt return. So hey, it works. Like, and then he talks about he had a conversation with a few coaches, but the one that stood out was Jim Tressel, and Tressel, how he said he did it was that he gave the jobs to position coaches, because then guys tried to show off for their position coach when they were out there. I'm like, and that made sense. That's like, I'm sure Tressel, in one of his many interviews,
and he's a wise man.
I'm sure in one of his many interviews he's talked about that before. I never either missed it or I don't remember it or whatever, but that it makes complete sense. You think about it, when you're dedicating so much of, a lot of people that play on your special teams are, you get some of your veteran players on the special teams, but a lot of times it's young guys, and it's young guys that they're trying to get playing time for, to see how they, do, and whether they're going to be able to actually play offense or defense. And it makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, yeah, this is like, if you want to be a brown nose to your position coach, well, you go and knock somebody's head off on kickoff return. And, if you're freaking Gabe Powers, and James Laurinaitis has been like, yeah, he's in my rotation. Like,
Well, I mean, it's genius because, and just as you're alluding to, like, one of those young receivers, I mean, Mylan Graham is like, coach, I want to be on the return team. And he goes and just knocks someone's head off on a block. Hartline sees that. And Hartline says, that kid's getting a crack before one of those 22 guys,
Yeah.
or one of the 22 guys that haven't done anything, that they're like, hey, man, give me a shot. Let me show you what I can do on special teams. And they prove themselves. They're more than likely going to get a chance to actually, see meaningful snaps in the game.
Yeah. And if we kind of now go full circle, what we talked about just a couple of minutes ago, if it really is the position coaches where the rotations are being built off of, well, this made sense. And I wish they would have did this a couple of years ago, because like maybe some of these guys would have been like, okay, maybe a lot of these younger guys are
learning every day.
Like, a lot of these younger guys are not getting maybe the reps that they need in practice, because you're giving all the, the first and second team the reps. So maybe somebody like Brian Hartline sees one of these kids that he's just not seeing a lot of in practice because, they are, you know, you're not going to put one of these kids in over a when you're
Right.
trying to win games and trying to win championships. And so then he might be like, "Hey coach, I like what, Koji did. I want to add him into the rotation. I think we should add another player in the rotation. He's balling out right now, and he's not going to be a liability to us blocking because the kid wants to go out and hit people. So like,
Right.
I want to put him out there."
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I mean, it's like like I said, he's hearing the voices. I think they're good voices that he's hearing, but kind of because we've all said it, he's still a brand new, like he's a pup when it comes to being a head coach. It's just sometimes it is frustrating watching a guy learn on the job when it's your favorite team. But
I
I
think
think
that
he's he's making the right moves.
I think that my hope for him right now, the way that he is, I really think that he could be, the next Dabo or the next Kirby. And why I say Dabo is it took Dabo a few years. South Carolina beat him a few years in a row. It took him a few years until he was and then he won a couple national titles. Now, and he would have continued been if he would have changed with the times. His stubbornness is why they are falling down. But
He's still not adapting.
yeah, but Kirby, Kirby is adapting. It took Kirby a couple years to really, get there, and he did finally. And I mean, he's the cream of the crop right now in college football, and to the point is, I think if they would have made the playoffs last year, I don't. They're the one team I don't know if Michigan could have beat, and he might have won a third straight national title. Like,
I mean, Alabama could have easily, they could have they were right there with Michigan. I mean, definitely that. I think we can all say confidently that was one of the worst Alabama teams in the last, 12 years or
I just think of
15 years, which still isn't that bad.
I just think that they had a lucky. They were, for whatever reason, on that day they were the better team, but I don't think that they were the better team than Georgia, Alabama throughout the season. I think Alabama was actually, especially coming down the stretch, just Alabama got them that day, and
Yeah.
I think probably Georgia was the best team in the SEC, but that's what happens when you lose, and it's you got to pay the piper then at times.
And it's just a kind of it's just the circumstances that Texas ended up, only dropping the one game, won the Big 12. It's just Georgia lost, the wrong day at the wrong point of year. Cause I mean, you very easily could have made an argument that they were a top 4 team. It's just, you couldn't have left Texas out for anybody there.
So, and that's just a long way of saying I do think that, I think if Ryan Day could become very easily, I think that that's where he's shooting for right now. Is it took Kirby a couple years to really get to this point, and I think that he learned on the job, and I'm thinking Ryan Day is learning on the job, and I like where he's at right now, and now he needs to turn it into next year. But definitely loved everything I heard about the running backs and the receivers and special teams.
Offensive line was kind of just, they need to step it up,
Mm-hmm.
which we expected going into it though.
You know, I'm interested to see how that goes. Like I said, I think we've talked about this before. I think them having an experience with, and I know maybe Hinsman ends up getting the job. I don't. I think that eventually it is going to be McLaughlin's going to end up getting that job.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they just have and even with Will Howard, again, maybe Devin Brown beats him out. I don't know, but even he would be a year older into the system and stuff like that. But I think having a veteran center that can really call out everything is probably going to help Fryer. I think we really beat Fryer up a lot from his lack of athleticism and him not being
Right.
fast enough. But some of that really could be that he had a very inexperienced guy that's supposed to be calling out the defensive front. And so and those guys do rely on, that if you have 3 guys lining them on him, it is a lot of times it's the center and the quarterback that tells the guys who they should be taking and stuff like that. And so
That's true.
and so I think maybe that will help him some, just having a more experienced guy be able to call. the defense out.
No, I agree with that. We'll see. I think the line will be better, but definitely gotta just kind of wait and see on that.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on the interviews you want to go over?
No, we touched on everything that I thought stood out.
Okay. All right. So we talked about that. We got a little fun thing kind of planned that we came up with. March. So brackets, plus 12-team playoff coming. So, we kind of mixed that up a little bit. So we started watching Ohio State mid 90s. We saw a lot of good teams in that period. We've seen two national champions. So we've taken the two national champions out of this. They won the title. So what was the best, Ohio State team in that period that never won the title? So, and how we further broke it down was that, not counting Fickle, he was only there for the season, but we've had four coaches. They've all had multiple seasons. They've all had some really good teams, so we took three teams from each of the four coaches. We declared one of them, and each coach had one of would be considered the best team. That would be the bye. And then, so those are your four buys. And then, each, so Cooper has two teams left. His winners will go over who we pick.
Playing games to play his best team.
Will play his best team, and so on and so on. So that's how we did it. Basically, what we're going to do today will be the opening round games. Each of us will give our opinions on them, and then we'll kind of do some stuff on Twitter to get some people's opinions on that stuff. Then the next episode, we will do the next four games. So it'll be the four winners of these games against the four teams that got the buys. And then we'll either split, depending on what the spring news and stuff like that. We'll either do the semifinals and the finals in the same episode, or we'll do the semifinals in one episode and the finals in another episode. Like I said, kind of depends on, we're kind of it's a weird part of the year where there is a lot going on and then there's not a lot going on. So it's like, it's just kind of like something fun to kind of talk about.
All right. So to set the brackets, the Cooper teams, we have 95, 96, and 1998 gets the bye. So 95 and 96 will play each other in the opening round. The Trestle teams, we have 05 and 2010. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the 2016 that made and lost the national title game, they are going to get the bye. Urban Meyer, we decided that 2012 undefeated regular season team against 2018 Dwayne Haskins year, and the 2015 team will get the bye. And then Ryan Day, this one, they're all tricky. Day, we decided 2020 would go against 2022 because 2020, of course, made the national title game. 2019, his first year, is getting the bye. So that's how we set the stage for this. Do we want to go chronological order? How do you want to do this?
We can go chronological and just kind of throw in there. We did do a lot of talking back and forth. Cooper's three were obviously easy. We only started watching in the mid 90s. Those three were those were the three that sold us onto stuff.
But even if we were to expand on that, you're probably not going any further back than 93 when it comes to Cooper.
Like you might have thrown a 94 in there. You might have did 93. There was some things in there that you could have did, but those were obviously the three. Trestle's, his tough ones were, we were caught up, 03. We had some arguments about 03. You have some arguments about 07.
07 national title. We just thought they kind of overachieved.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I felt. And you, Urban, there was a lot of back and forth with Urbans.
Urban's is tough, yeah.
So obviously 2016 was considered. They made the playoffs. If they had a little bit better of offense, they probably would have easily been in it. It was just because their defense was phenomenal,
and they beat a good Michigan team to get that playoff.
And 2017 was also considered. It's just they had, even though 2018 also had a bad loss as 2017, but they had the two losses, and so I felt 2018 was probably we felt that 2018 was the better one.
And it was a little bit of a different dynamic. Haskins, it was more throwing the ball than anything else than what Urban had done previously.
And you can make arguments about 21 and 23, but I think 2020 with Justin Fields was a better team and would have beat both of those teams. But he might not beat 2022, which we will get into here
Right.
in a second. So, yep, we'll start in chronological order. You can start, and then I'll go. So, 1995 versus 1996 to play 1998.
I honestly don't know if any team on this list has a better offense than 1995. I mean, it was scary good, just the top pieces they had everywhere. Orlando Pace is a left tackle, Eddie George is your starting running back, Terry Glenn's your number one wide receiver. All dynamic, all great, all very high first round picks. Ricky Dudley's your tight end. Their defense, though, just they hadn't because there's a lot of the same guys from 95 to 96. They just didn't, maybe they weren't mature enough. They did, I don't know. But Tim Biakabatuka absolutely torched them in Ann Arbor. And 96, even when they did lose to Michigan, they didn't have that problem. It was just a game that, their offense on the flip side didn't do nearly as well as what 95 did, but their defense was much better. And then even game against, Arizona State where it mattered in the Rose Bowl, their offense made it happen when they needed to make it happen. David Boston, of course, catches the game-winning touchdown, right? Correct? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like you might say lies right now. So, I mean, Sean Springs, you got him on both teams. Orlando Pace is on both teams. Of course, Pepe is a step back from Eddie George, but he had a hell of a season in 96. And 95's defense just wasn't stopping the run as well. And I mean, you still got what? You got Fickle, Finkus, and Vrabel they all carry over from 95 to 96, correct?
Yep. They're all there. Plus,
Katzenmoyer is a freshman.
Yeah, Katzenmoyer is a freshman.
So, with all that being said, just because of the actual play on the field, what we saw, and when it mattered most, Ohio State just kind of laid an egg, even though I think they only lost by a score, but they laid an egg against Tim Biakabatuka and then Tennessee in the bowl game, I believe. So I'm saying 96 takes this one. I mean, it's going to be razor thin. Both teams are great, but I'm going 1996.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize, and I agree with you. I would go with 96 too. So a lot of people don't realize how good 96 defense was. I could make an argument that 1996 is the best defense on this list. Like that defense was phenomenal. I mean, Ty Street is literally, I mean, you can say what you want about the 95 team. If Sean Springs does not fall down against Ty Street, Ohio State wins the national title. Like they would have been
title.
Like Arizona State was number 2 in the country. Ohio State was number 4 because they lost to Michigan. And they would have been number 1 and number 2 going into that game. That would have been the de facto national championship.
Right. It's a natural Rose Bowl, and it's also going to be a natural national title game. And
they would have won the national title. That offense was, good enough, to win games, but I don't think you also got to kind of take things in. Yeah, Cooper is coaching the team, so
right.
Yeah.
And that's
so
definitely, as the rounds go on, that's going to play a bigger factor.
Like, that stud offense, and Bobby Hoyen's a great quarterback. Joe Germain ends up being a great quarterback too, but he's young in 96, and and Stanley Jackson.
I mean, he plays more
most of the game. Yeah, he plays, but I mean,
they're both. He throws a touchdown in the Rose Bowl.
But I mean, that team. I mean, they heavily a Notre Dame team that scored a lot of points on Ohio State the previous year. They shut them down in South Bend. They shut Penn State down. Like, Michigan scores 10, 13 points on them. I mean, it's like
it's the reverse of 02, right? Don't they win
similar?
13? They win 13-9, don't they?
Yeah, it's either that or 13-7. I don't remember.
Do we score? I don't know, but
it might be 13-9. I don't remember, but it's something like that. Like Michigan had 13,
maybe 14-9.
Yeah, I think it was 13-9.
13.
I think you're right. I think because
standing out to me.
Yeah, because they got a couple field goals, and the one touchdown that Michigan gets is Ty Street. So, that. So yeah, I think 96 is just slightly better. Orlando Pace is a year older. Sean Springs is a year older. Antoine Winfield is playing on the 96 defense. Katzenmoyer had a phenomenal freshman season. And that defensive line was very hard to move against because, they were all very, very good. Finkus and Vrabel, you know, were very hard to block coming off the ends. And, Luke Fickle, I mean, his wrestling career preceded him. I mean, he was a hell of a nose guard in the middle, and like they were tough, and you know, so I just think that I would say slightly that they were the better team than '96 because of that defense.
And they had scary Gary Berry too.
Yeah, they were loaded on defense.
They certainly were. So okay, we agree on 96.
Yep.
So now we're going up to Tressel then.
Yep. So 2005 against 2010, and you can go.
My only reserve on this one is Jim Tressel. It took the 2005 season for him to start opening up as a coach. He was very tight. They lost 2 games because he was too tight of a coach in 2005. 2005, and we're going to say this for every coach probably, there's a good chance they're the best. They might be the best team in this entire bracket here. So, and just a rundown, I mean, line is what it is. I know, like, you have like Kirk Barton, you have Nick Mangold, of course, a couple. Sims is still on 2005. So you got, All Americans, you got first round draft picks. You got Santonio Holmes, Ted Ginn are your main targets for Troy Smith, who's a Heisman Trophy winner. Antonio Pittman's no slouch at running back. Defense is really where this team shines, though.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your linebacker room, and he's a true freshman. James Laurinaitis can't see the field until Bobby Carpenter breaks his leg. But what you got at linebacker is so just ridiculously loaded compared to just anything else that we have in this. You have AJ Hawk, Schlegel, and Bobby Carpenter. Secondary is not shabby. I mean, what do you got? You got
Ubodi.
Ubodi is a corner.
And Malcolm
Jenkins is a corner.
And then you have
a Hittner.
Yeah. And then you got Sally.
Yeah. So, I mean, they are just absolutely loaded. Now, on the other side, though, there is a man beast named Terrell Pryor that is the starting quarterback for 2010. And he did a lot for that team. Boom Heron is good, but certainly not the best running back on this list. Devere Posey's good, certainly not the best receiver. I mean, line's fine. You got Adams and is it Brewer? Brewster? Brewer. Yeah. Brewer. And I mean, so they're both very talented. Of course, you got Cameron Hayward's on 2010. Chimdi Chekwa would be a cornerback on 2010.
Remember, this team, if they don't lose to Wisconsin, they might be the team to actually win the national title.
I think Coleman's still there as a safety. Kirk Coleman.
Yeah, I believe so.
Trying to think who's linebackers really don't stick out.
Who's on the defense end that gets the interception against Arkansas?
Solomon Thomas.
Yeah.
That's his name.
Yeah, it's either one or it's not Thomas Solomon.
He was really good. But anyway, I mean, this is a long way. Like, I mean, I know they lose the Texas game in 2005, but I mean, Ohio State did a really good job of slowing down, Vince Young, which
that's what I was going to say.
Vince Young was probably a better version of Terrell Pryor. If we're being honest, I mean, Pryor's probably a little bit more athletic, as crazy as that is to say. Vince is a more refined passer, as crazy as that is to say about either of those guys to, phrase that. Vince is probably a better passer than Terrell. Terrell's probably faster, but Vince is, I mean, he obviously no slouch. and that defense was able to slow him down. I don't think there's enough offensively for Ohio State, even though they're fine pieces. They just don't match up against that defense. And, I mean, I think 2010's good, but Ginn and Holmes, they could get past anybody they ever wanted to.
Yeah.
So as long as Tressel doesn't hold himself back, which that is an aspect of this. We got to take that into account. But he still, even then, he would let teams, he would let that 2005 team, get loose, and he would throw, the deep ball. So yeah, I got to go to 2005 all day in this. I don't know if it's even really that close at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think like I said, there was a couple teams we could have thrown in here too. The reason why we went to 2010 is that that team was really, really, really good, and I think a lot of people kind of poo-poo it just because it's Trestle's last season and everything that happens that you kind of forget just how good they were.
They were a bad game in Madison away from at least having a chance to go up against Cam Newton and playing for a national title. And honestly, I mean, Cam carried his team just probably more so than Pryor did. So I think they probably have a good shot of winning that game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So with 2005, I was going to mention too that they did the best on Vince Young out of any team that year, and I just think that they would have been able to, shut down Pryor to a point that wouldn't let him get as loose as easily as he did, as he was able to get to in his season. Again, another very phenomenal defense. Now, that front four, they had some good guys. They're definitely not as good as the 96 front four. But I would argue probably the back seven's probably a push. Obviously, I think better linebackers, but the secondary for 96, it's close either way.
I would say back seven 2005 is better, but it might not be the best on our list.
Yeah, they might be better overall back seven to 96, but 96 probably has a better secondary, but slightly better because I think they probably had obviously Sean Springs is Sean Springs. Winfield's playing. They have Gary Berry. They have some guys that did some things.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that that's a really good secondary. But in this, and you got to assume like this is when we're picking these teams. These are the teams at their best level. So Troy Smith is he is at his best in 2005. This is not the Troy Smith that in the the Justin Zwick that rotated against Texas. This would have been if Troy Smith was ready to play.
Right. We're talking this is end of year, but all pieces are healthy.
Yeah, like if Troy Smith was what Troy Smith ended up becoming, if he was the Troy Smith that he ended up being at the end of the year in 2005, they beat both Texas and Penn State. So like, I mean, that's that's that. That was the reason. There was just everything with that suspension going into that season really derailed them early in that year. So yeah, I think that again, Gonzo and Holmes. I mean, talk about three great receivers. Their line was probably a little bit better, even though the 2010 line was pretty good. And so I agree with you. 05.
Yeah. So they'll go on to play the 06 team that made the national title. All right, Urban Meyer. So we landed on 2012 versus 2018. This might be where we have our first debate. I really love 2012. I mean, they were special. They were undefeated. They found ways to win games. It was very reminiscent at some points of 2002, not as dominant defensively. I have a hard time with 2012's offense being able to generate enough against Dwayne Haskins. Now, I know you could say on the flip side, 2018's defense wasn't that good. If you remember their 2018's defense, a lot of it was, safety mess ups. I don't know in 2012 if Braxton really showcased himself to expose that. I mean, 2012's defense is good. I think Haskins definitely makes plays. I do think that 2018 does have issues running the ball, which I think definitely, helps out 2012 because they for sure knew how to run the ball with Braxton and Hyde. But 2018, I mean, that was something that I don't really remember if they had issues with. I'm sure they did because their whole defense was a mess. All right, I'm saying 2018 wins. I'm trying to talk myself out of it. I'm not going to let myself do that. So 2018 is going to win. Haskins, was great. He was great at finding open receivers really quick, moving the ball. They found adjustments to them not being able to run the ball. So 2018 is going to win a close game. End of story.
I like that. I mean, I do like the pick. So I've been back and forth with this one. So 2012, like the reason why, we go 2012 over 2013 is the 12 defense is better than the 13 defense, even though, Hyde and Braxton are a year older. So like they might be slightly better offensively in 13, but like that defense always showed up when they needed to show up through that season.
Yeah.
And and that team would have won the national title for sure. Like obviously, they would have played Notre Dame. So like, and I know you can't say end all be all because there's a lot of questions whether 2018 would have got an opportunity. I don't think they would have won the national title. I think their defense would have come back to haunt them, but that doesn't.
Lawrence or Tua would have torched them.
For our discussions, that's not really a thing right now. This is just, what we're thinking. But 2018. So what I like against 2018, I do like 2012's defense, but the way Haskins is able to spread it around, he's got some really great wide receivers, and I think they would have really, really, really stretched Ohio State's 2012 secondary to the max. Now, where would have hurt 2018 is they couldn't run the ball that great, and and I think that Urban Meyer, as head coach of both teams, even though Ryan Day is the offensive coordinator in 2018, Urban Meyer's the 2012 offense is probably more to the way he wants the. So I think he would have been he probably would have been a better feel calling that game. And if it gets into a tight game, I think the Urban Meyer calling the 2012 offense is probably a better Urban Meyer than calling the 2018.
He's not on his knees on the ground with his head in his hands.
Yeah, like I just think that it's just different.
That's a good point.
And I think the defense is enough in 2012 that they slow the Ohio State offense down for 2018, and the 2012 Ohio State offense is, I mean, you could argue they could score points. I mean, and that Purdue team, when you think about just them blowing out Ohio State the way they did, I think there's a lot of equal talent there, and I just think that at the end of the day, I think the 2012 team, and it's just sad they didn't get. It's sad they didn't get to play for the national title because they had different points in that season. Kind of felt like a team of destiny, and I give the edge to 2012.
You know what I just realized? So of course, you got Braxton Miller, who of him or Terrell Pryor, obviously the most dynamic quarterbacks ever started at Ohio State. I mean, I don't think there's any arguing about that. I think you could put Justin Fields way up there. Justin had more arm talent than either of those two, so he would get my nod as the better of the best of the three. But do you remember which particular player on Ohio State's defense was recovering from Achilles in the spring, and they let him? He played all year for the defense. You remember who?
Who was it? I know who. It's on the tip of my
Tough Borland on 2018. Yeah. I don't know. Now I'm starting to think in my head that Urban could have got Braxton singled on Tough Borland all day and just been running all day. So I'm still going to say 18. We'll throw this one up on a poll to see what everyone else says. But yeah, I'm actually having nightmares that Braxton Miller is matched up on Tough Borland in space.
Yeah. No, I think no. I mean, Devin Smith's on that team.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got people around him that he could throw the ball to, but they were definitely much more of a pass or a running threat than they were a passing team. You think about that Maryland team, how they ran the ball, and so.
And Hyde could do anything than that. McFarland could do for Maryland. So
yeah. So no, I think urban coaching in 12 is probably better than urban coaching in 18, and I think the defense is just slightly better. It's a better defense overall. And I think that, there's enough on the Ohio State 2012 offense with how bad the 2018 defense showed at times. And now, if we say they are still at full strength and stuff like that, now I'm going to throw kind of a wrench in my thought process. Nick Bosa is there. And so, and Chase Young is there. So I don't know. Maybe by the end of the season, I guess it's just hard
that
to say.
2012 line they were getting better each game.
And we just
were great at 13.
We just didn't see enough of Nick Bosa that season to say that he definitely would have fixed the defensive issues.
No, because they were still doing that while he was in there.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stick with my 2012. I think that that's it. All right, 2020, 2022.
This is as interesting as it gets because 22 had bad secondary play. You might even be able to say the 2020 secondary play was worse, So 22 had no issue stopping the run. Not that I can remember.
Oh.
No. 2020 didn't have any issue stopping the run. 22 is not a great running team. I would say offensive lines are almost a wash. Probably 2020 is better at full strength.
Yeah, I would say so.
And I would say, Sermon's probably, if we're talking best on best, Trey's the better running back than Sermon, but Trey Henderson, sorry. Trey Henderson's the better running back than Trey Sermon. But 2020, they utilized Trey Sermon much better than they utilized Trey Henderson. I think it all comes down to this. I think these quarterbacks can absolutely just pick apart the two secondary because Ohio State's weakness was safety play in 2022. Olave and Wilson were great route runners, so they would have got those safeties to bite, got behind them. Fields, of course, has the arm. He's probably the most accurate, deep ball we've seen that actually has some oomph behind it in Ohio State. He absolutely would have been fine. He could have torched that defense. If they were playing back, he would have taken what they gave him and he would have made the plays. It's hard for me, though, because, CJ in 22, he still had a Mecca. He had Marv, and he absolutely would have been able to dice up the 2020 secondary as well. And I think that's a problem that we keep talking about secondaries, weren't that good this recently. But, of course, we think that we have that fixed. They looked good last year, and we know we're getting the talent back in. So I do think 2020 wins this game outright. They win the game. I think Fields I think he'll be able to bully those safeties and there'll be bigger plays for touchdowns where CJ, he didn't always hit those splash plays like that. He could absolutely carve you up and lead his team down the field and score a touchdown. I think it's going to be a ridiculously high scoring game that both secondaries look like absolute dog water. And, I think you go 2020 in this one.
Yeah, I'm not going to go long on this one because I actually really agree with you on everything. The couple of things I want to add to it is that, obviously both defenses had their issues. 2020's issues don't really get showing till later when, COVID really starts hitting everything, within the program, the pandemic. I think that obviously I think Stroud, not only does he light up the secondary, but he absolutely torches the linebackers, with his throwing. But everything you said is true about Fields against that defense. And also I think Noel's aggressiveness hurts that team.
And I don't know 22 has the pass rush that they even get home because 2020's offensive line was solid.
Yeah. So I do think it's a high scoring game and stuff like that, but I think at the end of the day that Justin Fields even though in the long run is probably not the better quarterback than the two of them, but I think he has the better skill sets to win a game like this. And at the end of the day, I just think he would have made, you think about how bad, he made teams look foolish and stuff like that. You think about 2019 when Michigan was trying to blitz him like crazy and he was killing them and stuff like that. I think Jim Knowles trying to bring the kitchen sink at him, they would have easily got the receivers behind those guys, and they would have just his arm and both Wilson and Olave being able to go downfield. It's just would be just too much for him with him being able to keep plays alive, and
like I don't want to call people out, but man, I'm thinking Cam Martinez or Lathan Ransom from that year trying to stop Wilson or Olave, and it's just it looks ugly in my mind, but of course Wade on Marv doesn't make me feel too good either. And let's face it, I mean their deep safety in 20 was a mess also. I mean that was awesome. They didn't know how to do anything then either. So I mean definitely Emeka Fleming, they could eat in that game too if they, or even Marv if they get behind the safety. So yeah, I mean I think it's a bad game regardless, but Justin in 2020 come out with the win.
Yeah. All right, so we agree on 3 of the 4, so it's just the one that we didn't agree on, but so I think that's a good start. So the next episode we will, so it'll be 96 against 98. It will be 2006 against 2005. For me, it will be 2012 against 2015. For you, it's 2018 versus 2015. And then we will both have 2019 versus 2020. So that will be how we will set up the next go around, and we'll be throwing some questions out over the next couple of days on Twitter to on X, I should say, that will kind of get some people's thought processes on this whole bracket.
All right, well, that was fun though. So I had a good time, and we'll keep this going. March Madness, Ohio State loser style. So, best non-national champions in our time watching. All right.
Again, just one last thing before we go. It's just you think about how many of these teams could have won national titles.
It's scary. I mean, even like we were talking about 95. Yeah, I mean 95. If 95 went undefeated, wins their bowl game. Did they win the Rose Bowl in 95? They would have. I mean, there's no way undefeated Ohio State's not getting a split national title. I can't see it. I understand Nebraska's probably the better team. I understand Nebraska's the better team, and they would have.
Well, I mean, as much as I hate to say it, I mean, if you think about it, it happens in 97 when Michigan was the better team. So the least of the better teams sometimes they can pull a split, especially when they're a brand, they can pull a split.
The brand carries you a long way. So yeah, back then the brand definitely carried you. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. A lot of these teams could have been national champions.
Yeah. I mean, you think of it, we didn't even include like 03 or 07, and 07 had an actual shot at it. 03, if they beat Michigan, the one loss doesn't hold them out. They would have played Oklahoma, not LSU, and they would have beat Oklahoma. And, and then you think about, the 2016 team, if they just had a little bit more offense, they were right there. And so, I mean, there's teams that we didn't pick that, had a very opportunity that, a lot of teams, basically, if just a couple of things went our way, you could be talking about over the last how many decades Ohio State, and you're not. I mean, you still talk about Ohio State, but it might have been Alabama who, and that's just the craziness of how things kind of work out, and it is what it is.
Absolutely.
All right, let's call it a night.
All right, well, thank you everyone for stopping in tonight to the Buckeye Bar. I'm John,
and I'm Mike.
OH.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added, and please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking, and we want to know what content to add for you guys. OH.